short videotape segment you're about to watch was filmed in January 1984 at a one-day Phobia Trauma Institute we taught in Boulder, Colorado. In this seminar, we thoroughly teach all the elements of the NLP Fast Phobia Cure developed by Richard Bandler, co-developer of Neuro-Linguistic Programming.
This fast phobia cure can be used with any specific phobia, such as a phobia of water, of insects, closed spaces, elevators, or anything else specific. This method can also be used with agoraphobia, but often it will be necessary to use other NLP methods in conjunction with this method in order to get effective results.
We're making this tape available to let people know about the surprising speed and effectiveness of this NLP method. Very frequently, we read newspaper or magazine articles about some 6-month treatment method for phobias, or about drugs as the treatment of choice for phobias. This seems really unfortunate when a method so simple and so effective is available.
This tape shows Lori, who had an intense phobia of bees. She had agreed to be a demonstration subject in our Phobia Institute. She had been brought into the room just before this tape segment begins, and she had had no other previous contact with us.
During the question period that follows Steve working with Laura using the phobia cure, you'll see a 15 or 20 second break in the tape. This happened when the recorder changed videotapes, but nothing important was lost.
As this tape shows, it is not necessary for the client to believe that the pattern will work. Throughout this procedure, which takes just over 6 minutes, Lori is completely skeptical and unbelieving.
After the session itself, you'll see a 10-minute follow-up interview with Lori that took place 11 months later.
Lori, I haven't spoken to at all.
No.
So you talked with Michael, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what kind of outrageous promises he's made.
I won't tell you. I won't tell you what he promised.
Okay. Anyway, you have a phobia, which we won't tell him about, okay?
All right.
And it's a very specific thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just one thing, or is it kind of a class of things?
It's one thing.
Just one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what I'd like you to do first, well, think of it right now. If one of these were flying around right now. Okay. This is what we call pretest. That's fine. Come back. Look at the people here. Look at me. Hold my hand.
Thank you. Okay.
We're not going to do stuff like that, right? Okay. Now, look out at the folks here. I've got to sweep the chair and stand up. How's it just being in front of these folks? Is that a little nervous making too?
Not bad.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. You got a friend over there, right?
Yeah,
He's got a nice smile,
he sure does.
doesn't he?
He's a great friend.
Yeah, good. Okay. Now, what I'd like you to do first is, before we do anything, the whole procedure, by the way, is very simple, and you won't have to feel bad and stuff like that. But we need to make a few preparations. And what I'd like you to do first is imagine being in a movie theater,
Okay.
and this might be easier with your eyes closed.
All right.
And I want you to see a picture up on the screen of yourself, black and white snapshot. And it could be of the way you're sitting right now, or something you do at home or work. Can you see a picture of yourself?
Uh-huh.
Is that pretty easy for you?
Uh-huh.
Good. Now, I want you to leave that black and white picture on the screen, and I want you to float out of your body that's sitting here in the chair up to the projection booth of the movie theater. Can you do that? Take a little while.
Okay.
Okay? So, from now on, I want you to stay up in that projection booth. And can you see yourself down in the audience there?
Mm-hmm.
And you can also see the black and white picture up on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, of yourself?
Yeah.
Pretty interesting, huh?
It's good.
You know, you could go to a workshop on astral travel and pay $250 to learn how to do this. Okay. Now, I want you to stay up in that projection booth, see yourself down in the audience, and see that black and white picture on the screen of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Got that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want you to stay up in that projection booth until I tell you to do something else.
Okay.
So you can kind of see through the glass, and there's holes in the glass so you can hear the movie, because we're going to show a movie pretty soon. What I want you to do is run a movie of yourself in one of those bad times when you used to respond to that particular thing. And run it from beginning to end, and you stay back in that projection booth. You might even put your fingers on the glass and feel the glass. And just run a whole movie clear to the end. See yourself freaking out over there in response to one of those situations. That's right. Take all the time you need. Just let me know when you get to the end.
It's hard to get to the end.
Okay? What makes it difficult?
It just seems to stop. The thing seems to go over and over and over. The particular incident goes over and over and over and doesn't seem to have an end, although I know it ended.
Okay. So it tends to go over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How many, let's speed up the movie. How many times does it have to go over and over before you can get to the end?
Half a dozen.
Okay. So I'll let it flip through half a dozen so it'll allow you to get to the end. And when I say end, I mean after the whole thing happened and you're back normal again.
Okay.
Okay, got to the end?
Mm-hmm.
Was that fairly comfortable for you watching that?
A little uncomfortable, but not bad.
But not bad.
Yeah.
Nothing like the real thing.
No.
Okay. Now, in a minute I'm going to ask you to do something, and I don't want you to do it until I tell you to go ahead. What I want you to do is get out of the projection booth and out of that chair in the audience and go into the movie at the very end when everything's okay and comfortable. And then I want you to run the whole movie backwards, including those 6 times around. Ever seen a movie backwards in high school or something?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to have you run it backwards in color, and I want you to be inside it. So it's just like you took a real experience, only you ran it backwards in time, and I want you to do it in about 1.5 seconds. So it'll go about like that.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead. Do that. Okay. Did you come out on the other side all right?
Yeah.
A little weird in the middle there, huh? Okay. Now, I'd like you to do that a couple more times and do it faster. So go into the end, right at the end, jump into it, and then go real fast through the whole thing. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now do it a third time, real fast.
Okay.
Okay? Is it easier the third time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, now that's all there is to it. Pretty weird, huh?
I'm glad I didn't pay for this one.
Crashing and burning.
Fine, it's all right. We love to joke. Joking is one of the nicest ways to dissociate. Think about it. When you're joking, when you're having a humorous response to something, there's really no way to do it other than popping out for a while, looking at yourself, and sort of putting a different frame around what's happening, such that it's funny. It's a real valuable way of dissociating. We believe that dissociation is the essence of a lot of humor. Not all. There's different kinds of humor and so on. But we definitely recommend it. Now, Laurie, would you imagine now that one of these little critters came?
Okay.
What's it like? You still have it?
No.
It scares her now.
No. This is is a nice response because it looks like what? Consciously, she's expecting to have this response. She's had it for how long have you had this?
20 years.
20 years. She's had this response very, very dependably for 20 years. It's been a very unpleasant, overwhelming response. There's a very strong conscious expectation. And what you saw here was this conscious expectation going, it's going to be terrible. What?
It's true.
Now, let's make it a real bad one, you know. Have one come in and land on your hand or something. Can you imagine that?
Mm-hmm.
What's it like?
It's like having one sitting there on my hand.
That's a typical answer. It's so funny. It's like being in an elevator, you know. Isn't that a mind-boggling?
Yeah, it is. Because I had that happen within the first year after the first incident. I had one land on me.
And it was different, right?
Yeah.
Now, okay, it's of bees. And again, I want to urge you to be cautious. Bees do sting.
Yes, I know.
It's not pleasant. You know, for most people, this is survivable. Connirae has a sister, actually, who has a very, very strong allergic reaction to bee stings. And there are some people like that for whom this is a life-threatening problem. But they do hurt. We don't expect you to go out and play with bees or become a beekeeper or anything like that. We don't want you to be a bee freak now. Okay? But since you haven't had much experience with these critters, we want you to exert a little bit of caution. You may want to check them out when they're on the window. I'll give you a hint, by the way. If a bee gets in the house and they're on a window, they're so interested in getting out, they have no interest in stinging you. Unless you squeeze them or something like that. So you might, it's really literally true. They won't sting you that way. They're trying to get out, and they won't. I'm a beekeeper.
Interesting.
And, so you might find it interesting to study these critters a little bit, because you've probably not got close enough to see them at all.
No.
For a long time.
No.
Okay. Do you have any other questions, or do you have any questions of her?
Do you have any sense of caution about a bee now? I mean, there's not a big response now, but is there any fear or caution about a bee and what can happen with a bee?
Yeah, right at this moment I feel cautious. I would not go up and go nose to nose and find out whether or not this thing has actually worked. But I wouldn't stay away from it, from a situation. I would be able to go and look at the bee in the window and find out whether or not I could get close to it, and actually be able to see that it is a thing. It's an animal. It's a flying insecty type thing. But I definitely would have some caution, because I have, besides the initial incident, I have been stung several times since then. And I do know that, I'm not going to go up and put myself in a situation right away where I will not be cautious.
How close could you have gotten to a bee before today? Or could you visualize yourself?
Yeah, history is that a bee is in my house, I'm not. Anywhere in the house. Yeah. I've had a bee in my car, and I had to stop the car and open all 4 doors until it left. Honeybees around my flowers. I can't have certain flowers around because they have the honeybees, and I got to go all the way out and around. I cannot be in close proximity. Could not. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for her? Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Lori, I want to thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to have a follow-up interview with us. It's been about 11 months now since Steve did the NLP phobia procedure with you on your phobia of bees. And that session, the whole session, took about 12 minutes. I don't know if you knew how long it was.
No, I didn't.
About 12 minutes, and the actual phobia process was only about 6 minutes. Now, at the time, you were rather skeptical that there was any change, if you remember.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit what your experience has been since that time. You've been through a summer.
I went through last summer and actually don't have any recollection at all of being anywhere around bees, which is incredible because I know I had to have been over the course of an entire summer. The first time that I even thought about it was probably September, October, somewhere in there, when I received a phone call from you, and the question was, well, how was your summer and how was your interaction with bees? And it was,
Bees?
what? I mean, there just literally was no recollection at all of being around them.
Now, before that, how many times would you say you'd see a bee in a summer? Like, how many times a month or a week? Or
Daily, at least. I mean, it seemed
Okay.
like whenever I was out before, whether I was walking around flowers or near someone's home or there was a hive or any time there was any bee in the neighborhood, I mean, in the vicinity anywhere, I knew it was there. I knew it was there.
Your focus of attention
Yes.
was on it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that sounds likely because that's the way it is at our house too. There are bees around every day. So, okay. Now we just a few minutes ago brought some bees in the house just to make sure, right? In a jar, and you looked at them in a jar, and we let one out too. Would you tell us a little bit about what your experience is like this time, seeing bees for real?
It was rather phenomenal.
Yeah, we have them actually right here.
When you initially brought this jar in, it was across the room, and my initial reaction was, the bees are in the house. Inside a jar, but it was
It must be
probably
time
a
to get a little nervous, right?
conditioned. Oh, I remember what it was like. But I took the jar, and I actually, as you can see now, I'm holding it, looking at them, and my comment was, gee, they really are rather interesting. And they really are. They're rather interesting looking things.
Now, would you have done that before?
Oh, I couldn't have even been. No, no, no.
Okay.
And in looking at them, I mean, I'm surprised. I'm really, really surprised at this.
Yeah, I remember you said in your earlier session that if there's a bee in the house, I'm not. And so we actually, before, let a couple of them out just to find out, to test.
We
what
let
your
one
reaction
out.
is.
And had it flying around over by the window. And prior to this, I had actually had bees in my home. And I could not be anywhere in the house because I knew there was a bee in there. I had to wait until someone came in and got rid of it. And we let one out, and it was flying around, maybe 10 or 12 feet from me. And I was just literally sitting here watching it. And it's like, oh, I see, there's a bee. And the question was, I think you or Steve asked the question, how close could I get feeling safe? And I think I came within about 6 feet of it and just watched it moving around the window. And it doesn't have the fear, the terrified, that awful, awful, terrifying fear that I had before. It just isn't the same.
Great. Okay, well that's how we like it to go. It usually goes when it works, and that's what we wanted to test for. And I want to remind you that we don't want to get totally rid of people's caution, and I think you still have that. You know, you were careful not going too close, and make sure you know what these guys are going to do, and that kind of thing.
I could not be. I still don't think I could have one flying really, really close to me and be comfortable.
No, I don't
there
either,
was a
personally.
safety factor for me that I would still feel safe.
Yeah.
But I don't have the conditioned reflex of just, I've got to be away from them at all costs.
Great. That sounds really good to me. You too, right?
Me too.
Okay. Now, earlier you told us a little bit about the experience that you had years ago. I think you said about 25 years ago when you were 11 years old and you first got that phobia of bees. Would you tell us a little bit about what that experience was?
Yeah. We were on vacation, my family and myself, and had gone to a small town on the western slope of Colorado. My brother and I were playing with newfound friend at a motel. And we had run across a log and gone down to a river and were playing. And when we came back, they decided it'd be really fun to ditch sister. And so they ran back ahead of me, and I went after and fell off this log as we were heading back to the motel room. And when I fell into a wasp hive. Could not get out, scared, hurt, crying. and was stung just hundreds of times.
Uh-huh.
So I was crying. They finally came back, got me, picked me up, took me back to the motel room where my parents, stripped the clothes off and took the bees out from under the clothes and the multiple stings, and it was just, it was a horrifying experience.
It sounds that way. It sounds definitely not one that any of us would want to repeat.
Definitely not.
You said something, too, about they had to cut the rings off your fingers, is that right?
I had
you
a
couldn't wear
reaction.
your clothes because you were just swollen up all over?
I had a reaction to the bee stings. My entire body swelled up. I had some jewelry on at the time. They had to cut that off. I couldn't wear my own clothes. I ended up wearing my father's robe for a couple, 3 days because my entire body just swelled and reacted so terribly to the stings.
Okay, well, it's certainly understandable how that could result in someone getting a phobia. Okay, well, there's one more question I want to ask you.
Sure.
And that is, the phobia that you had for about 24, 25 years, something like that. And the process that got rid of it was about 6 minutes long, right? What do you think about that?
It is hard to believe. When I went through that phobia workshop almost a year ago, I didn't even realize it had been that long. At the time that we did that process or procedure, I don't know the term that you call it, but at the time that we did that, I sat there and it was almost incredulous to me that thinking this thing through or redoing it or whatever it was that we did to get rid of the phobia, that could have any effect on it. That 6 minutes worth could have any effect on this horrible phobia that I had. And seeing now, being around the bees and having one in the house and not having had the reaction over the summer and having had this total shift in my perception of them. There just aren't the right words for it. It's like phenomenal, unbelievable, incredible.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I get
those
the idea.
superlatives I would use.
I get the idea. Okay, well, thanks a lot. And thanks for sharing all the information with us. And I'm really glad that it has made a difference for you.
So am I. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. The videotape that you've just seen demonstrates all the elements of the NLP fast phobia cure. What the tape does not show is the experiential training and the conceptual understanding that this method is based on. It's this background that being able to use the method successfully with each individual person depends upon.
We would like to caution you about trying out this method with really strong phobias without this background of understanding and information and training. This training is available in our one-day Phobia Institute and also in any 24-day NLP practitioner training where all the other basic NLP methods are also taught.
Studies show that about 1 person out of 20 has a serious phobia. And by serious, I mean one that significantly interferes with the person's functioning. A lot of people, this means, are needlessly hurting and have been for years when a method that's really simple and quick could be used to take care of that suffering.
In our training others, we've encountered a lot of skepticism that such rapid change is possible. This is completely understandable. We ourselves were very skeptical when we first encountered the NLP fast phobia cure and other methods of NLP.
We offer you this videotape experience as one direct way for you to know what the NLP fast phobia cure is all about. If you're still skeptical, we hope that you take your doubt seriously enough to find out personally what NLP can do.
The same method that you saw used to cure a 24-year phobia of bees can also be used to cure any other experience of trauma in which a person is still reliving an old, unpleasant experience. We and the people we have trained have used this method with victims of child abuse, rape, other unpleasant experiences, including war experiences. Vietnam veterans, for instance, suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. What a mouthful that is.
So next we show you a 15-minute follow-up interview with John. John's a Vietnam War veteran, and he had been suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome for the 12 years after he'd returned from Vietnam. I used the NLP fast phobia method with John in a 40-minute session, and you'll hear about the results here. We've had contact with John since this interview. The interview is a 1-month follow-up, and we've had contact with John 7 months later, and John says everything is still fine.
John, it's been about 4 weeks now since we went through the NLP phobia procedure with some old Vietnam War experiences that had been bothering you. I'm wondering if, first of all, you'd tell us a little bit about some of the impact that those experiences used to have on your life. I know there were some very unpleasant, to put it mildly, experiences that you had.
Mildly.
And that you, like many other Vietnam veterans, had those same experiences bother you in certain ways in your life for the next 13 years.
Well,
Is that right?
that's more than right. We get back in 1972. And for the first couple of years, I didn't bother going to see anybody. As a matter of fact, at that point in time, nobody knew anything was wrong. And then during that period of time, it was pretty rough. It was rough on me. It was rough on my family. I was still in the military, so I had somewhat of a structured life. And there was no outward signs of it. But in my personal life, it was chaotic because my wife, on several occasions, had to go sleep someplace else or get beaten up, one or the other, and I didn't know what was going on.
Okay, and was this because you didn't want to have anybody physically near you or touch you, or how would you
Well,
describe
she
it?
said that I would be screaming and swinging and everything else. That's the external signs that were shown. Internally, while I was sleeping, I would be right back where I was. Okay. And at that point in time, everything that happened was coming back. Okay.
Okay.
Including when I got back, when I first got off the airplane, of all places, San Francisco in the early 70s. And I was in uniform, and, you know, I was the lowest thing on 2 feet because I was in uniform. So that helped a lot, right?
Yeah, right.
18 hours before, I was looking out for my life, and here I am in a safe country.
Looking out for your life again,
Looking out
right?
for my life again.
Yeah.
But anyway, this went on for about 4 years, and finally my wife said, do something or else. And since I didn't like the way she said or else, I went to the base hospital, and I talked to some of the psychiatric technicians there, and they said, you'll get over it, don't worry. And in 74, I got into a counseling field in the military, drug alcohol counseling in the military. Part of that was to go to school. And in school, about half the time was academic, the other half was the students actually going through psychotherapy. Now, their mainstay there was transactional analysis and Gestalt. And I did a good part of the work there. You know, bringing up the past and talking about it and everything else. And this helped for a little while. I think until about 2 weeks after I graduated. And then the dreams, although not as violent, were still there. I'd get up 10 times as tired in the morning as I did when I went to bed the night before. Because I was still reliving what was happening.
And how often would that kind of thing happen?
Well, there's no set time pattern on it, but any time I encountered any relationship to a violent situation or anything relating to Vietnam,
So if you'd
that
seen
would
some
click it,
Vietnamese
yes.
in the crowd or
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah. I've got an interesting story about that. One time I was down here in Denver at the Bonanza Flea Market. And we're walking around the flea market, and we're coming down this one aisle, and all of a sudden I hear voices that sounded very familiar, and I look up, and here comes a group of Vietnamese. It was maybe one family of about 10 people coming at me. And I clicked right back to the most violent incident that occurred to me in Vietnam at that point in time. And I was right back there. I mean, when I looked around, everybody was Vietnamese. Everybody in the flea market was Vietnamese. And I turned around and start running back the other way. And my wife started chasing me. And finally, when she did catch up to me, it was in the parking lot. And she says, "What's wrong?" Well, I felt rather foolish. I wasn't going to say, "Hey, those people scared the hell out of me."
Yeah.
So I told her, "I think I forgot to close the windows. It looks like rain." But things like that were always happening. I don't care where I was. I was very sensitive to people behind me. People walk up and touch me, or just walk up and say something. I would be very startled, to the point of jumping and turning around, ready to do something. And it wasn't going to be pleasant. Took a lot of self-control on my part, not to hurt somebody.
That must have taken a lot of energy, too.
Energy.
Even tiring.
Yeah. I've gone through several different types of therapy. In '82, I went through some more TA Gestalt. I put the whole Vietnamese country in a chair and I talked to them. Apparently they didn't understand English because they kept coming back.
So you didn't notice an impact from doing that?
Yeah. I went through another school, and there they had two modalities they were teaching, and both of the instructors figured they're going to work on me with both of them. One was reality therapy. And that's great. You know, I am in the here and now until something else clicks. RET, the same thing. You know, there's nothing wrong with my behavior until something clicks.
So that consciously, you could make sense out of not responding in the same way, but that didn't seem to make any difference in terms of your response. Yeah.
I would know what is right and what is wrong. And as a counselor myself, I know I've got to be together before I can help somebody else. I've got to dump my garbage and I tried. I would sit and I would tear my guts out telling people about what happened. I mean, standard procedure. Drag up the past, talk about it until it's gone.
Yeah.
Well, it just doesn't go.
Okay, and I think that gives me a more than enough of a clear picture of how things were for you. Would you tell me what kind of difference it made when we went through the NLP phobia procedure? And I want to also add in that's a one-session process that we did. It took maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes at the most, something like that.
It seemed like that to you. It seemed more like 45 days to me.
Yeah, I understand.
But after that procedure, that was on a Sunday. Okay. We had another day of class, and then I went home and I relaxed for a day. The following day, I went up to a seminar in Casper, Wyoming. It was a governor's conference on substance abuse. And people all around, they were coming up to me, putting their arm around my shoulder, bumping me, and, you know, things that I would react to very violently before. I was taking as a matter of course now and not reacting to it the way I used to. And this went on for 2 days, and I didn't think anything of it. Now, I brought my wife to that particular seminar, and she, one night in the hotel room, she come over and she says, "What's wrong with you?" And I says, "Nothing's wrong with me." "Why?" She says, "You're different." I said, "What do you mean I'm different?" She says, "You don't jump when people come up behind you anymore. When people hassle you or push you or jump or knock into you, you don't react to it." I I said, I don't. I said, no, I don't. And then it hit me. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. And I have begun to enjoy Oriental food again. Matter of fact, night before last, I went into an Oriental restaurant, Japanese to be exact, a Japanese restaurant, and ordered the entire meal in Japanese. It's a language that I had learned long before I went to Vietnam, and since then I haven't even thought of.
Just wanted to push it aside.
Yeah, just anything Oriental I would push aside. But I've met two of the most beautiful people in the world, both of them Oriental. And I missed a lot because there are a lot of beautiful people of all races. But these two particular ones, if I was, as I was before the phobia treatment, I don't think I would have ever met them. And that much I want to thank you for. They're two beautiful people.
You're very welcome. Yeah. Are there any other results that you've noticed? Are there nightmares
sleeping
gone?
better.
Okay.
Sleeping better because I wake up in the morning and I don't have all of the covers tied in a knot. I don't remember any of the dreams, and I haven't had any. As a matter of fact, I went to see a rerun of a Vietnam flick, Boys from Company C. And first time I saw that, it was, like hell for about 2 weeks. This time, nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was all right.
Great. And is there a difference now in thinking about the past things that happened to you in Vietnam that you don't like,
Right now, I could think about it. If you remember, I says there's a little bit of emotion left, and I want to keep that. Well, that's all I feel is that little bit.
So now you can remember it with a little bit as opposed to really being overwhelmed. Okay.
I can talk about what happened to me as well as to other people and not react to it in the way I used to. I mean, I could still empathize because I was there.
Yeah.
But as far as getting deeply emotionally involved in it, I'm no longer there. That's beautiful, and I like it.
Great. Oh, there is one more thing I wanted to ask you, John.
Go ahead.
A lot of people, it's going to be difficult for a lot of people to believe that you could change something as strong as you've described in one session.
Okay.
And have the kind of reversal in response that you're describing. I'm curious what your response, what your personal reaction was to find that difference. Or do you have anything else to comment on about that?
The only thing I could say is people have been trying to get me out of this mess since 1972. March 3rd, to be exact. 1972. And it took years, and they still didn't do it. And it wasn't because I was resisting. I was more than willing to get rid of the garbage. My reaction to the session that we had, you and I had, is nothing but peace, contentment, and total gratitude to you, Grinder, Bandler, and anyone else that has anything to do with NLP, because it's beautiful. I think it will change my life. It's only been about 4 weeks now, but it's been a beautiful 4 weeks.
Good. And I know that you doing what you're doing, it will probably change a lot of other people's lives, too.
Yeah.
Great.
The NLP fast phobia cure is only one very small part of NLP. NLP is a very broad and comprehensive set of methods for changing behaviors that can be applied to a wide variety of situations. What is unique about NLP is its ability to get specific results with precision and that can be easily taught to others.
NLP includes methods for gaining immediate rapport, methods for gathering precise information, for negotiating, for changing beliefs, and many ways of changing feelings and behaviors that people don't like into those that they do like.
Many of the methods of NLP have been discovered by studying people who are already happy, having lots of choices, and lots of capabilities. NLP essentially asks, what do these people do in their minds already that allows them to have these capabilities?
Now, if you ask someone that directly, and that's all you did, you probably wouldn't get back very much useful information. But NLP includes methods for finding that out and then being able to teach that to other people.
Many people have been through horrible experiences that no longer continue to affect them. Others, like John and Lori, continue to relive these awful experiences over and over again.
It gives us a lot of satisfaction to be able to train people to use their experience differently, to be able to use their brains in such a way that they have the kind of experience they want to have.